pretty simple because we start off with a sort of casserole type pan. I want to get some sunflower oil in there, about sort of 4 tablespoons, and I want to get it on a sort of medium heat. And then I've got a whole selection of like spices that I've got, really good stuff. So what I want to do is I want to start off with some ground coriander, which is quite a nice sort of fragrant, sort of quite frumpy sort of herb. So what I need is a dessert spoon, and what I need is about one of these, just sort of not heaped completely, but sort of about that much. So I'm just going to sprinkle that into the oil. And then I've got some fenugreek here, which is sort of a slightly sort of garlicky sort of spice that looks just like that. Have a look at that. I mean, they're sort of quite granular, and you know, they're sort of garlicky and sort of lemony and sort of spicy. Very nice herb. And then I've got some paprika, which is kind of where a lot of the colour comes from. So we want about 4 tablespoons of that, and that's going to give it a nice little kick as well. So we'll have one of those, 2, 3, and 4. And then I've got good old turmeric, which is a nice subtle sort of, I don't know, sort of fragrant-ish sort of spice, but it has that great sort of colour. So we'll sprinkle that in. Let's get the heat up so it starts to toast. Now, in the old days, obviously they didn't know what was in the spices because it could have been, you know, sort of going a bit stale and stuff. So you toast them to sort of bring all these lovely spices back to life. So I've got some mustard seeds here. They're black. They look like little poppy seeds. Right, I'll have 2 of those, and they'll start to sort of pop. So we get those in. And this is one of my favourite ingredients, is curry leaves, right? And I never knew about these until about 2 or 3 years ago. They look like little mini bay leaves, yeah? But they're kind of like savoury, spicy sort of tea leaves. So, as far as I'm concerned, when I started using curry leaves in my Indian cooking, that's when they sort of started tasting a lot more authentic. Get those in. I want to give these a little stir. And you can smell the whole room getting complete, you know, each time you put the spices in, you can smell it, you get another little spice coming through, and this is kind of quite an important part in the curry, the base. So, to this base, just about every curry I've ever made has had, like, onions and garlic, right? So, what I want to do is just take the ends of the onion, half it, and just peel it. There we go. Now, I'm going to put these in my... You can finely chop these by hand, but quite frankly, you know, when I've got plenty to do, and we've got a little bit more sort of decorations to do in the room and stuff, you know, I want to get my outfit on and start looking a bit schwanky. And it's going to be such a laugh tonight, because basically, like, you know, I've been to fancy dress parties before, and sort of, I've been to cross-dressing parties before, and that got a bit messy, and I looked a bit of an idiot, to tell the truth. But, you know, it's quite nice going to sort of, you know, parties when you can kind of have a little bit of escapism, you know, sort of put a few outfits on and, you know, generally end up in a really good laugh, even though you do feel a bit of a plonker at the time. But, so I'm going to try and get all my mates to sort of get a few little Bollywood numbers on. Honey's going to turn. Honey's a lovely girl, right? She's a real... And then I've got some garlic. Now, it sounds like a lot, but I want pretty much all of this garlic. So I'm just going to get the bulbs, give them a little slap, like that. And that just breaks them, and they're quite easy to peel when you do that. You've got about 7 cloves here. Keep an eye on these spices. Just keep them moving, and they look like they're getting quite dark, but it's all good stuff. So let's have a peel. A little nip at the end, and they just sort of seem to pull off like that. There we go. Last one. Now, what I want to do is just give it a good old whiz. Here we go. Now, what I want to do is just get these onions into this mix, and they'll start sautéing, yeah? So I'm going to turn the heat now down to sort of medium-low, and I want to bring out that sweetness in the onions, so I don't want to cook them too quick. Really mix it up. And quite frankly, doing the onions in the Magimix stops all those tears and stuff like that. Now, if it looks a bit dry like that, you can add just a little bit of oil. Oh, look, the old onions have got me eyes. And here we go. Just a little oil just to loosen that. Lovely. Right, so, next I'm going to do a little bit of ginger and some coriander and some chilies. So, I'm just going to get myself a nice big bit of ginger like that, and I'm just going to take the ends off and peel it. I mean, I'm not a great expert, but, you know, I've worked in a few Indian restaurants and I've done a lot of reading about it. And India is no different than sort of, you know, Italy or France or even England, you know. It's very regional cooking, and, you know, with sort of variations on religion and sort of, you know, what's available, meat, fish. You know, there's a lot of sort of vegetarian sort of religions in India. They use completely different produce. But further over to the south, you know, it's actually sort of quite sort of Thai sort of flavours. A lot of ginger, a lot of chilli, a lot of coriander, you know, a lot of fresh tomatoes, and quite zingy, sort of zappy sort of flavours, which I never ever thought of. You know, I never thought could come out of India, because I was brought up around sort of the northern Indian curries, which are, you know, quite long cooking, spicy sort of things. So there we go. We've got sort of 3 thumb-sized pieces of ginger, and what I've got here is some coriander. Now I'm going to use these leaves a bit later. And I'm going to take off the stalks, and I'm just going to cut those in half. And they've all been washed. I'm going to put those into the Maggi mix as well. Give them a whiz. Lovely. And then I'm going to put these tomatoes in, fresh tomatoes instead of tin tomatoes, just because, you know, got that fresh flavour, which, you know, is much lighter. So 6 of these, and then, just to sort of go with the paprika and the sort of the chilli vibe, I'm going to use some fresh chilies. So I'm going to keep the seeds in as well. So just pour them in. Look at that. It's going quite nice and dark and sort of sticky. So this is what I love about this sort of cooking, right? Unlike the sort of northern Indian curries that take hours, right, or can take hours, these sort of more southern ones, you know, this has taken me, apart from being really good fun and sort of adding the spices, the smells getting bigger and filling the room up, like we've got pretty much a base of a curry done in sort of 5 minutes, right, which I hope they're going to love. What I'm going to do now is just put a little knob of tamarind in, which is basically, I don't really know, it's kind of like, it looks like a big kind of black sort of broad bean pod. And what they do is they pick it, and you can actually see the little pips in here. And they pick it, that's a pip there, and you wouldn't want to eat that. Basically, they pick these beans, they salt them, and they pack them in. I think they leave them for a long time. And basically, they end up going really sort of sour and sweet, sort of like treacly sort of lime flavour. It's really, really different. Just a little bit of that in there. And tamarind is very often used with fish, and I think it's very good with chicken, actually. So what I'm going to do now is get some water, about a pint of water, and I'm going to add this to the pan, bring it to the boil, and I'm going to simmer that for about 20 minutes, right, just to get all the flavours going. And that is going to be my basic curry sauce. And then I'm going to put a pan here, a pan there, and I've got some chopped up chicken, I've got some mixed vegetables, and I'm just going to put a bit of oil in the pans, fry them up, and when they're sort of nearly cooked, I'm going to divide this sauce into both of them. So I've got a vegetarian one for Honey and her friends, I've got some chicken curry for my mates. Beautiful. So what I'm going to do now is put a bit of salt in, otherwise it will be bland. And I need some tin foil. Just cover this up. And there we go. I'm going to bring that to the boil, let it simmer for 20 minutes, and what I'm going to do now is a fantastic Indian dish. It's called paneer, and it's a beautiful